Hi, I'm Breanne Sawall.
And I'm Allison Turner, and today we are going to be talking about mass shootings and some of the impact that they have on the globe. The mass shootings in the U.S. are having effects on other countries, so we wanted to talk about that, and also the impact that these incidents have on the survivors and their family members.
So this is the Washington Post defining mass shootings. Since 1966, there has been 162 mass shootings. Mass shootings are 4 or more people being killed, or have been killed, and they do not include gang violence, robberies that went wrong, or domestic shootings.
So the first part of their data starts in 1966 with the University of Texas shooting, where 17 people were killed. And so they've looked at all of the mass shootings by their definition since then and have calculated all this data about it. And their website shows really great visuals and stuff. I would definitely recommend checking it out.
Yeah.
And so it shows you each individual person. It, really showcases the victims, and it showcases all of the guns that they use. So victim-wise, there have been 1,153 people killed in mass shootings. The youngest being 8 months old. They also have 3 children who were killed as fetuses, I guess.
Yeah, unborn.
Yeah, they weren't born yet. Their parents, their moms were pregnant.
The oldest was 98 years old. There were 189 children and teenagers killed.
Mm-hmm. And I feel like there's a lot of instances where with social media and stuff, they showcase a lot of children and teenagers more than older people, and I think it's important for them to include more of that, because while it's really sad, when it happens to teenagers and children and stuff, it's just sad in general, I think. So I think media itself could do a better job at showing, the impact that it has on adults and over children and teenagers than they do now.
Collectively, there were 309 guns used in these mass shootings. 171 obtained legally, 59 illegally, which is pretty crazy to me, and 79 unknown.
Yeah, I find it really absurd that people are just easily, it does outweigh, the being legally bought guns outweigh the illegally ones, but the fact that that's even a situation is guns can be so dangerous in the wrong hands.
Right.
And so I think,
That's why I think gun control violence is a good thing, with the new law being passed or trying to be passed, where you have to have, certain requirements in order to get a gun.
Yeah, and I know some people argue that it's, there's no way to avoid it and stuff, but because, you can borrow people's guns and, you could just go, especially with teenagers and children, they can just go in their parents' cabinet and get what they want. And, well, that's not legal. It's not something that can 100% be prevented with gun control and everything, but I do think, if parents are educated on the importance of keeping secure guns and everything like that, then it could reduce the amount of issues that have been occurring.
Definitely. I
also find it interesting in the research that they don't really know where 79 guns came from. Is there's no record of it, so I'm assuming at least that they don't know, because if it's going through the government, they should have a record of it if it's legal. So if you think of it in that sense, is that
where'd it come from?
There's a possibility that all of those are illegal.
Right. But there were 166 shooters, and 3 of them were only female.
Yep, all of them were pretty much male.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Which, I think about it and I'm like, females and women in general just tend to have a more nurturing sense and a less violent sense, I think, than men. I know a lot of amazing men, that I know wouldn't do crazy things like that, but it's incredible to me that out of 166 shooters, there's only 3 females.
Yeah, that's really crazy. 93 of them died at the scene from the shooting.
Yeah, so most of them end up killing themselves after they do it, or, doing like a suicide by cop situation where they, refuse to follow orders and everything. And it's really sad. I mean, like, I don't want anybody to die, even if they do something horrible, like killing other people,
Right.
For me personally, I think everybody should get a second chance. And while that doesn't always mean that, you should get out of prison at some point or whatever,
No.
I don't think anybody deserves to die no matter their circumstances. So I think it's really sad that so many of these people go in and kill people and then end up dying themselves.
Yeah. But in some way, I feel like they just deserved it.
So before this data was collected, really there were only 25 public mass shootings that fit their requirements, according to a criminologist named Grant Dewey. And so it's kind of just been a recent thing that mass shootings have become so in the forefront, is basically in the last 60 years. It's become such a big issue. And also on the Washington Post's page, you can see they have a timeline chart, and you can see how it grows and has grown over the past years. And it's like within the past 2 or 3 years, it's become just like almost a regular occurrence. And it really shouldn't be a regular occurrence.
It used to surprise people, but now it's like, oh, another mass shooting.
And they also talk about how the media kind of shows the schools and places of worship, so like churches, mosques and stuff, they display that so much more than the actual mass shootings that are the most popular, which happen in offices and in restaurants and stores and retail establishments, that it's actually more common in the past 60 years to have, work disputes or, people coming into restaurants and stores and getting upset and, pulling out guns and actually, committing these offenses. So it's funny that the media doesn't cover that as much.
It is, yeah. With the newest shooting in New Zealand, there were 50 deaths, 50 injuries, and they aged from 3 to 77, which is pretty sad.
It started in one mosque, and the guy live streamed it on Facebook, the first part of the shooting. So he live streamed himself going there and doing it, and then driving off. He turned off the Facebook live stream, but then he drove down the road and went to another mosque. Yeah. And what's crazy about that is it just goes to show that the U.S. mass shootings are affecting the world, because New Zealand hadn't had a mass shooting in over 22 years. Their last one was February 8th of 1997. So that's older than both of us. So it's crazy to think, they went that long, and here we are in the U.S. having them every couple of months where they're in the news, big issues like that. So between February 1997 and March of 2019, the U.S. had 104. So that entire time that New Zealand didn't have mass shootings, the U.S. had 104 of them, which is crazy. And then to talk about the impact that these mass shootings have, not only on people that survive them, but also their family members. Recently, the father of a child that was killed in the Sandy Hook school shooting committed suicide, because it's such an emotional toll on family members to lose someone like that. And so his name was Jeremy Richmond, and he lost his daughter, and they actually created a non-profit organization following the shooting that focused on trying to prevent violence and researching and getting the community engaged and trying to prevent that. And so, a lot of people were very surprised with his work through the foundation that he killed himself.
And then there's 2 surviving students that just recently killed themselves within the last 2 weeks. Sydney Alanelio and Calvin Desire. Sydney was 19 years old. She graduated. She lost her best friend in the shooting, and she was diagnosed with PTSD. And Calvin Desire, he also had survivor's guilt. It's really sad to see two people that survived to go through that and so young.
And they talk about, the Parkland shooting with those two students. The 1-year anniversary just happened last month. And so it's like a lot of the times these people survive these incidents and have to live with the guilt and the trauma of it. And so when the anniversaries come around,
Be more upset.
yeah, and so they actually it's less likely for them to kill themselves right after the event, but after, I think,
After thinking about it for so long.
yeah, I think right after it happens, it's like you're kind of in shock.
Yeah.
So, but after a while, things calm down and it's like the reality really sets in. And so when anniversaries come along and stuff, I think it's harder. It's harder because they think about, and almost have to relive that with an anniversary.
Yeah.
Because they also talked about some past mass shootings where they've also had suicides. So there was a student that survived the Columbine shooting, Greg Barnes, and his best friend was killed in the shooting. And so he committed suicide not long after the first anniversary as well. So this isn't a new development relating to mass shootings, the suicides following it. It's something that has been seen over and over again.
And Carla Holzhalter, the mother of an injured student, committed suicide 6 months after the tragedy exacerbated her pre-existing clinical depression.
Yeah, so she already had some mental health issues.
Yeah.
And just, even though her child didn't die in the shooting, it's like just the trauma of knowing people that die and stuff. And
Like her daughter was in that situation. That was scary for her.
yeah, because you don't know as a parent,
Right.
until you talk to your kid and you don't know if they're alive or if they've been killed. So I can only imagine, that would be really rough.
Only 28% of the people that survive mass shootings are diagnosed with PTSD.
Which, I feel like that number could be more, truthfully.
Yeah.
I think some people don't, that's saying, that they're diagnosed by a doctor, and I think a lot of people are too afraid to talk about it with a professional. And so I would say it's almost a guarantee that number should be more. Because 28% to me seems really, really low.
Right.
I think so
Even
many people.
after 1,153 people died and killed in these mass shootings, and from different age ranges, it just seems to me that number should be more.
Yeah, and you look at 1,153 people who really should be here, that shouldn't be a situation where they're innocently just in their classroom or at a restaurant eating dinner.
Or going to work.
Exactly. And I think it really shows the impact that if you look at the numbers, you can see that mass shootings don't discriminate against people no matter what age they are, what race they are, what sex they are. It has a big impact on everyone. So it's not a situation where it only affects a small group of people. And I think moving forward, I would hope that we could change as a society and
have more people come up front and talk about their problems rather than express them by killing others.
Yes, exactly. Because I think what I think is the funniest part of all of this is, mental health issues often result in mass shootings, and mental health issues result from mass shootings. Yeah. So it's not contagious, but these instances almost make it where it spreads and spreads and spreads, and more people are being affected by mass shootings nowadays. But I think moving forward, if the, government can get some kind of gun control to at least reduce the amount, I don't think we'll ever get to a place where
we won't have guns.
Yeah, I mean, that or like have mass shootings. I think it's bound to happen in some extent, but I would hope that we can work to improve that.
Yes. Thank you for listening. This is Breanne Sawall
And Allison Turner, and we hope you enjoyed our podcast.